Picture the ocean as you know it, as you've always imagined it. Think of a world painted in impossible blues and greens, a kaleidoscope of life teeming in sun-drenched coral cities. Imagine vast schools of silver fish moving as one, a single shimmering superorganism dancing through the currents. Hear the haunting, melodic songs of humpback whales echoing across entire ocean basins, a planetary-scale conversation we have only just begun to decipher. This is the ocean of our dreams, a realm of majestic wonder and vibrant, familiar life. For generations, we've seen it as a constant, an eternal and unshakable force of nature. But this vision, as beautiful as it is becoming a memory. It's starting to feel like the beginning of a fever dream, where the world you recognize begins to warp and twist into something unsettling, something alien. You've heard the diagnosis before: our planet has a fever, and the ocean has absorbed most of the heat. But calling it warming is far too simple, too clean. It doesn't capture the strangeness of what's happening beneath the waves. Every ton of carbon we pump into the air doesn't just warm the water. A huge portion of it dissolves, creating carbonic acid and turning the ocean more corrosive. Think of it less as a warming blanket and more like a slow-acting poison, subtly changing the very chemistry of life's primordial cradle. The fundamental rules of survival, rules that have governed the seas for millions of years, are being rewritten in real time. And in this planetary-scale chemical experiment, the old winners are beginning to falter, creating a terrifying power vacuum. What happens when the very water turns against the life it once nurtured? This isn't a straightforward story of loss, of beautiful things simply vanishing. It's a story of transformation, and it's far more unsettling. The collapse of the old guard, the vibrant ecosystems like coral reefs, is not leaving behind an empty wasteland. It's creating an opportunity. In nature, a vacant throne never stays empty for long. As the intricate web of life, woven over eons, begins to unravel, we are seeing the first stirrings of a new order. It's a quiet, creeping revolution happening just out of sight, in the crushing dark of the abyss and, more frighteningly, in plain view. The chaos of our making is a dinner bell for organisms that thrive on disruption, life forms that have been waiting patiently in the wings of evolution for a moment just like this. The new contenders for the ocean's throne are not like the creatures that rule today. They are not the complex, charismatic vertebrates we admire. Instead, they are beings from a different chapter of Earth's history. Some might even say from a different world entirely. They are the masters of survival, the specialists in chaos. They are the life that flourishes when oxygen vanishes, that sees acid as a minor inconvenience, that treats poison as a delicacy. These are not just adaptations. This is a fundamentally different approach to existence. As the familiar world of fish and whales recedes, this ancient, alien vanguard is sensing its moment. In the shadows of our dying reefs, a new empire is preparing to rise, built on principles that defy our very understanding of what life should be. But where do we find the first signs of this silent coup? Where is the evidence of this dawning alien age? You might expect the first clues to emerge from the abyssal plains, those deep, dark frontiers we've barely explored. You might imagine some monstrous leviathan rising from a trench. But the truth is far more visible and far more insidious. The first wave of this new oceanic dynasty isn't hiding in the dark. It's appearing at the surface, in our coastal waters, on our beaches. It manifests as vast, shimmering plagues that arrive on the tide, ghostly swarms that can stretch for miles, choking harbors and turning the water into a thick, pulsating soup. The first to answer the call of a changing world are not monsters from the deep, but an army of ghosts from the past. This is that ghostly army we spoke of, the silent invaders arriving on the tide. We call them jellyfish, a name that feels almost comically simple for what they represent. From a distance, a bloom can be strangely beautiful, a living watercolor painting shimmering beneath the surface. But get closer, and that beauty dissolves into something deeply unsettling. You see millions of translucent bells, pulsing in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. There are no eyes to meet yours, no faces to read, no sounds to be heard. It is a fleet of biological automatons, an armada of gelatinous life that feels more like a geological process than a gathering of animals. And they are no longer a rare spectacle. They are becoming the new, unnerving normal. So why now? Why are these ancient beings staging a planetary takeover in the 21st century? The answer is as simple as it is terrifying. We built them a paradise. The ocean's rising fever suits them perfectly, as warmer waters turbocharge their life cycle, allowing them to reproduce at astonishing rates. While other marine life suffocates in the expanding low-oxygen dead zones, jellyfish, with their minimal metabolic needs, simply drift through unbothered. They are the ultimate minimalists, perfectly designed for a world running out of breath. And to top it all off, we've systematically eliminated their competition and predators. Decades of overfishing have removed the very species that once kept their numbers in check, leaving a gaping hole in the food web that the jellyfish are now flooding into. To truly grasp the horror of their ascent, you have to understand what a jellyfish is, or rather, what it isn't. It is an animal stripped down to its absolute essence. It's over 95% water, containing no bones, no cartilage, no blood, and no centralized brain. Instead of a single command center, it operates on a nerve net, a diffuse web of neurons spread throughout its body. This means it doesn't think in a way we can comprehend. It reacts. It is a decentralized, living network, more akin to a sentient web than a singular creature. They are phantoms from a bygone era, with a body plan that has remained virtually unchanged for over 500 million years. They have weathered ice ages, asteroid impacts, and multiple mass extinctions that wiped out nearly all other life. They are not just surviving our new reality. They are remembering a world they once dominated. And their reign is not a gentle one. A massive bloom is not a passive gathering. It is an ecological blitzkrieg. As this gelatinous carpet spreads, it consumes everything in its path. Billions of mouths devour unimaginable quantities of plankton, fish eggs, and larvae, effectively sterilizing the water and severing the food web at its base. They are not malicious. They are simply efficient. The horror of the jellyfish empire is not one of evil intent, but of mindless, unstoppable consumption. You cannot reason with it. You cannot intimidate it. They clog the cooling pipes of power plants, shutting down our cities. They burst fishing nets with their sheer weight, destroying livelihoods. They are a force of nature we have accidentally unleashed, a quiet, pulsating plague that suffocates the ocean from within. Yet, a kingdom of ghosts is still a simple one. The jellyfish are the ultimate opportunists, a mindless tide of flesh rising to fill a void. Their ascent is a symptom of the ocean's sickness, not the ultimate cause or the final victor. Their empire, as vast as it may become, is one of simplicity, a world without thought or strategy. They are merely the first wave, the beneficiaries of chaos. But they are paving the way for something else. To find the true, cunning contenders for the future throne. The ones with intelligence, strategy, and a capacity for genuine novelty. We have to leave this sunlit, shimmering world of ghosts behind. We must descend into a realm of eternal night, a world powered not by the sun, but by the very poison of the earth itself. To find the next contenders, we must leave the familiar world behind entirely. We descend, past the sunlit zone, past the twilight world where light fades to a permanent midnight. We sink deeper and deeper into the abyss. Down here, the pressure is immense, a crushing weight that would instantly turn a human into pulp. The water is near freezing, and the darkness is absolute, a blackness untouched by a single photon of sunlight for millions of years. For centuries, we assumed this was a barren desert, a lifeless void. How could anything possibly survive in this eternal, frozen night, a realm completely disconnected from the sun's life-giving energy? This is the very definition of a hostile environment, a place where the rules of life as we know them simply shouldn't apply. And yet, it is here, in this crushing dark, that we find something that shattered our understanding of biology. Imagine journeying miles deep and suddenly seeing a flicker of light, not from a creature, but from the seafloor itself. You approach and find a landscape straight out of a Gothic fantasy. Towering, jagged spires of black rock, some as tall as skyscrapers, belching plumes of superheated, black smoke into the frigid water. These are hydrothermal vents, underwater geysers where water, superheated by magma deep within the Earth's crust, erupts from the seafloor. This fluid isn't just hot. It's a toxic cocktail of chemicals, rich in compounds like hydrogen sulfide, the very chemical that gives rotting eggs their foul smell and is lethally poisonous to almost all life on Earth. And yet, impossibly, these hellish chimneys are not barren. They are oases, teeming with dense, writhing colonies of life. What powers this impossible garden in the dark? The answer is a concept so alien it feels like science fiction: chemosynthesis. On the surface, nearly all life is powered by photosynthesis, with plants using sunlight to create energy. Down here, in the absence of light, a different kind of miracle occurs. Specialized bacteria have evolved an incredible ability to eat the toxic chemicals spewing from the vents, primarily hydrogen sulfide. They metabolize poison and, through a complex chemical reaction, create energy. These bacteria are the foundation of this entire ecosystem. They are the sun of the deep sea, the primary producers in a food web built not on light, but on the chemical energy locked within the Earth's molten heart. This isn't just a clever adaptation. It's an entirely parallel path for life to take. And the creatures that have evolved to live here are as bizarre as the process that fuels them. Great clusters of giant tube worms, some over 6 feet long, anchor themselves around the vents. They have no mouth, no stomach, no gut at all. Instead, their bodies are packed with the very chemosynthetic bacteria they depend on, living in a perfect symbiotic relationship. The worm's vibrant red plume acts like a lung, absorbing oxygen and the vent's toxic chemicals, which it delivers to its internal bacterial colony. In return, the bacteria produce all the food the worm needs to survive. We also find the Hoff crab, named for its famously hairy chest, which it uses as a personal garden, cultivating its own crop of chemosynthetic bacteria to snack on whenever it pleases. This is farming, but in a world that has never known a sun or a season. Perhaps the most striking resident is the scalyfoot snail. This is a creature that has taken the phrase "you are what you eat" to an extreme. Living in an environment saturated with iron and sulfide, it has evolved the unique ability to incorporate these materials into its body. Its foot is covered in hard, overlapping plates of iron sulfide, giving it a menacing, armored appearance. Even its shell is coated in a layer of iron. It is a biological knight, wearing armor forged in the fires of an undersea volcano. These creatures aren't just surviving in hell, they are building their bodies from it. Their existence is a profound testament to life's tenacity, proving that the rules we thought were universal are merely local bylaws. These are the true lords of poison and fire, masters of an environment that represents our worst nightmare. They prove that life doesn't need the sun. It just needs an energy source, any energy source. But for all their incredible resilience, they have a weakness. They are specialists, tethered to these specific geological hotspots. Their kingdoms are powerful, but small, isolated islands in the vast, cold darkness of the abyssal plain. They are prisoners of their own strange paradise. But what if there was another group, one already lurking in the shadows between these volcanic oases? A group with cunning intelligence, unmatched adaptability, and the ability to thrive not just in one small corner of the deep, but across the entire ocean floor. What if the next ruler was not a specialist, but a master generalist? The jellyfish are mindless opportunists, and the extremophiles are prisoners of their volcanic homes. So, where do we find a true contender? A ruler with the cunning and adaptability to not just survive the coming chaos, but to conquer it? The answer might have been hiding in plain sight all along, a dark horse candidate in the evolutionary race. They are a group of beings that represent a completely different branch on the tree of intelligence, a form of consciousness so alien it challenges our very definition of what it means to be smart. We are, of course, talking about the cephalopods, the octopus, the squid, and the cuttlefish. This is not the story of a brute force takeover. It's the story of a silent, intelligent conspiracy unfolding beneath the waves. Cephalopods possess the most complex brains of any invertebrate, a startling example of convergent evolution where nature, given a different set of starting materials, arrived at high intelligence a second time. An octopus has around 500 million neurons, comparable to a small dog, but its nervous system is structured in a fundamentally alien way. It has a central brain, but more than 2/3 of its neurons are distributed throughout its 8 arms. This means each arm can think, taste, and act independently. Imagine being a creature whose limbs are semi-sentient partners. What does the world feel like to a distributed consciousness? This alien mind is housed in a body that defies belief. With no bones to constrain them, they are masters of contortion and escape, able to pour their bodies through any opening larger than their beak, a tiny, bird-like mouth hidden at the center of their arms. But their true genius lies in their skin. It is a living, thinking cloak of invisibility and communication. Their skin is covered in millions of tiny pigment sacs called chromatophores, each one controlled by an individual nerve. In an instant, they can change their color, pattern, and even their texture to perfectly match any background. But it's more than camouflage. It's a language. They communicate with each other using complex, rippling light shows, a visual vocabulary of intent, emotion, and warning that is as rich as it is incomprehensible to us. Their greatest weapon, however, may be time itself. Most cephalopods have brutally short lifespans, living fast and dying young, often in just a year or two. While this sounds like a disadvantage, in evolutionary terms, it's a superpower. This rapid turnover of generations means natural selection can work at lightning speed, allowing them to adapt to changing environments far faster than long-lived vertebrates like fish. A problem that takes a fish population thousands of years to solve through genetic mutations might be overcome by a squid population in a matter of decades. They are built for a world in flux, but even that doesn't capture their most radical ability. Cephalopods are one of the only known animal groups that extensively edits their own RNA. Think of DNA as the master blueprint in the library, and RNA as the disposable copy you take to the workshop. While their DNA blueprint remains stable, they can make on-the-fly edits to the RNA copies, altering the proteins they produce in real time to suit their immediate environment. It is the biological equivalent of rewriting your own software as you run it. Now, put all these pieces together in the context of our changing oceans. As traditional fish stocks collapse under the pressure of warming, acidification, and overfishing, a vast ecological void is opening up. The cephalopods are perfectly poised to fill it. They are intelligent, adaptable predators with bodies that can go anywhere and skin that makes them invisible. Their rapid evolution and RNA editing allows them to respond to environmental stress with astonishing speed. We are already seeing the signs. As fish numbers decline in certain areas, squid and octopus populations are booming. Are we witnessing the dawn of a new age of intelligence, one born not of bone and spine, but of soft, mutable, and hyper-aware flesh? An ocean ruled by clever, cooperative packs of Humboldt squid and solitary, plotting octopuses sounds like something torn from the pages of science fiction. It feels like the ultimate conclusion, the rise of a new intelligence to inherit the seas. But the future ocean may hold a final, apocalyptic twist, a catastrophe so profound that it threatens to reset the board entirely. This killer comes not from space, nor from a competing form of life, but from the deep past of our own planet. It is a threat that could suffocate an entire world, and even these masters of adaptation may not be able to escape it. The water itself is threatening to turn against them. A world ruled by intelligent, hyperadaptive squid seems like a plausible, if unsettling, future. Feels like a climax. But what if that's just the final act of a play we understand, before a completely different kind of horror story begins? The most terrifying threat to the future ocean isn't a creature at all. It is a process. A slow, planetary-scale suffocation. A ghost from Earth's own deep past, returning to claim the world. It's a scenario where the very water, the cradle of life, turns into its tomb. This is a planetary system's failure, a global apocalypse that has happened before and may be starting again. It begins with a simple law of physics. As the surface of the ocean warms, the water becomes lighter, less dense. This warm, buoyant layer begins to float on top of the cold, dense, deep water, like a layer of oil on vinegar. The more it warms, the harder it is for these layers to mix. This process is called stratification, and it is a lid being placed on the deep ocean. It chokes off the great ocean conveyor belts, the global currents that carry oxygen-rich surface water down into the abyss. The deep ocean, cut off from its life support system, begins to run out of air. This is ocean anoxia. It is the beginning of the end for the world as we know it. At first, the effects are confined to the crushing dark. Complex life that needs oxygen. The deep-sea fish, the wandering squid, all the intricate creatures of the twilight zone, begin to suffocate. They die, and their bodies drift down into the abyss like a constant, grim snow. This massive influx of decaying organic matter becomes a feast for a different kind of life. Anaerobic bacteria. These are ancient microbes that don't breathe oxygen. In fact, oxygen is toxic to them. As they gorge on the endless banquet of the dead, they release a waste product. Their exhale isn't carbon dioxide. It is hydrogen sulfide, a gas so poisonous it's used as a chemical weapon, the very scent of rot and decay. This is the tipping point where the process becomes a runaway nightmare. The deep ocean transforms into a toxic reservoir of hydrogen sulfide, a Canfield Ocean, named for the scientist who proposed this terrifying state. This anoxic, poisonous layer doesn't stay in the deep. It grows. It expands upwards, a rising tide of death from below, poisoning the water column mile by mile. Imagine an ocean where the water itself becomes corrosive and foul. The surface might still look blue and inviting from space, but just beneath, the water is a murky, toxic soup, devoid of complex life. The mass extinction wouldn't be loud and explosive. It would be a silent, creeping plague of suffocation. This isn't just a grim fantasy. This is a scenario with a terrifying precedent. We have seen this killer's signature in the geologic record. 252 million years ago, at the end of the Permian period, an event known as the Great Dying wiped out an estimated 96% of all marine species and over 70% of terrestrial life. The evidence points to massive volcanic eruptions triggering runaway global warming, which led to a stratified, anoxic, and sulfide-poisoned ocean. It was the closest life on Earth has ever come to being completely extinguished. We are now recreating the trigger conditions with unprecedented speed. In this breathless, poisoned world, it seems nothing could survive. Intelligence, speed, camouflage, all are useless when there is nothing to breathe. The reign of the clever cephalopods would be over before it truly began. The great whales and the sharks would be distant memories. The very idea of a complex marine ecosystem would be a ghost. The ultimate ruler of the ocean would seem to be death itself, a silent, toxic emptiness. But life is more stubborn, more alien than we can imagine. We have already met the true heirs to this seemingly empty world. We have seen the creatures who view this global catastrophe not as an apocalypse, but as an opportunity. They are the ones who see poison as food. They are the ones who barely need to breathe. They are the ones who have been waiting patiently in the dark for millions of years for the world to become hostile enough for them to inherit. So we are left here, in the aftermath of a silent apocalypse. A breathless, toxic ocean where the water itself has become the enemy. It seems like the end of the story, a planetary tragedy leaving nothing but a vast, empty graveyard. But this is where our human perspective fails us. We see emptiness and death, but nature sees a clean slate. The end of one world is always the beginning of another. And the heirs to this seemingly desolate planet have been waiting patiently, because what we call an apocalypse they call liberation. The poison that suffocated an entire kingdom is, to them, the very breath of life. Let's return to the deep, dark seafloor. It is no longer a collection of isolated volcanic islands of life. The prison walls have dissolved. With the entire ocean floor now saturated with hydrogen sulfide, the chemosynthetic bacteria from the hydrothermal vents are free. They erupt from their ancient homes and spread in vast, shimmering carpets across the abyssal plains. Imagine continents of life, glowing not with the familiar bioluminescence of fish, but with the eerie chemical light of poison being turned into energy. The armored scalyfoot snail and its descendants are no longer rare oddities, but the new grazers, wandering these bacterial plains like herds on a sulfurous savanna. A new global ecosystem, born from the Earth's toxic heart, has inherited the bottom of the world. And what of the sunlit layers above? They are not empty either. Here, the gelatinous empire we met earlier has achieved its final, terrifying victory. In a world with few fish to compete with and even fewer predators to fear, the jellyfish are the undisputed masters. They are perfectly adapted for the low oxygen conditions that have wiped out so much other life. The surface waters become a perpetual, silent ballet of pulsating bells. New forms evolve to fill every vacant niche, from microscopic hunters to vast, colonial drifters that act as living islands. The ocean's surface is no longer a place of vibrant, darting color, but a slow, hypnotic, and profoundly simple world. It is a return to a primordial state, ruled by the oldest and most resilient animal body plan on the planet. This is the New World Order, a two-layered kingdom of the strange. The foundation is the deep, powered by chemosynthesis, a dark engine turning geologic poison into life. Above it floats the gelatinous ceiling, powered by a weak sun filtering through murky water. The two are connected by a grim cycle. When the jellyfish of the upper world die, their bodies sink, becoming a perpetual rain of organic matter. This jellyfall is the fuel for the anaerobic bacteria in the deep, which in turn produce more hydrogen sulfide, feeding the vast chemosynthetic mats and completing the circle. It is a stable, self-sustaining ecosystem. It is also a monster, an alien biosphere thriving on principles we find utterly hostile. So, who will rule the deep? We've been asking the wrong question. The future of the ocean may not belong to a single ruler. Not a whale, not a shark, not even a hyper-intelligent squid. The throne will be taken by a new system, a new set of rules, an alien operating system for a planetary ocean, rebooted by catastrophe. The winners are not the strongest, the fastest, or even the smartest by our definitions. They are the ones whose definition of life was flexible enough to see a poisoned world and call it paradise. The future of marine ecosystems may be a world of bacterial mats and ghostly drifters, a silent, pulsating planet that is just as alive as ours, but in a way we can barely recognize. It's a humbling and terrifying thought. Life does not care about complexity, intelligence, or beauty as we define them. It only cares about continuing. The story of Earth is not a straight line of progress leading to us. It is a chaotic, branching tree, and some branches lead to worlds we would find horrifying. As we look out at our blue planet, we are forced to wonder, is the world we know and love the only way for an ocean to be alive? Or is it just one possibility among many, a temporary state before the planet's deeper, stranger, and more ancient tendencies reassert themselves?